Stephen A., Warriors-Knicks. Should he take the Warriors gig?
Clearly, the Warriors' job is a significantly better proposition for him than the New York Knicks. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson may be the best shooting backcourt in NBA history. Draymond Green has really shown himself. All of them are locked in for at least the next couple of years. Andrew Bogut is there as well. Maybe somebody can turn him into a player when the game really, really matters. And my opinion is, Skip, if you don't mind, I'm going to go on the record right now and propose a trade. I think that the Golden State Warriors, with Steph Curry, with Klay Thompson, with either Andre Iguodala or Harrison Barnes, with the pieces that they have in place along with Draymond Green, are desperate for a big man with presence, meaning somebody who can defend, who can rebound, who can potentially block shots, who can set picks and screens to free guys up, et cetera, et cetera. I think the New York Knicks should be on the phone with the Golden State Warriors, offer to move Tyson Chandler to the Golden State Warriors in exchange for either Iguodala or Harrison Barnes with another piece. I think that's what the New York Knicks should be doing, to use Tyson Chandler to get two players that would instantly be starters for the New York Knicks to pair with Carmelo Anthony in the event that he elects to come back. But with all of that being said, let me also say this. I'm going to reiterate my point from yesterday. The Golden State Warriors are a better job than the New York Knicks. I have absolutely, positively no problem with Steve Kerr being a head coach, a head coaching candidate, particularly for Phil Jackson in New York. His basketball acumen, what he's accomplished as a five-time champion, and as an executive in this league, he deserves credit for that, and he wouldn't be the first coach that was hired with no coaching experience whatsoever. My issue for people on Twitter, for coaches who called me yesterday, for people who called into my radio show with Ryan Rucco yesterday, my issue has never been about Steve Kerr being a candidate. My problem is that he has had his pick of the litter, because that is not something that I see happen for black coaches, where you have never coached a day in your life on any level, but you literally get to sit back, and I got New York, possibly L.A., and now Golden State. I essentially have my pick of the litter. I'm going to ask the same question that I asked yesterday. What the hell?
Now they're saying Utah's in there also.
Right. Like so I'm going to sit there and ask the question. Yeah. What the hell has he done to warrant that? I'm not talking about a head coaching job. I'm talking about somebody with no coaching experience having their pick of the litter. Let me throw some names out there for you. I mentioned to you Avery Johnson. I forgot to mention Lionel Hollins. You get into the Western Conference Finals last year, you get fired. This guy, your successor, gets bounced out in the first round. He's got job security. Sam Mitchell, who is an analyst for NBA TV, he's got his own NBA show on SiriusXM with my boy Frank Isola from the New York Daily News. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, this is a guy that was an assistant coach before he became a head coach, was coach of the year in Toronto. Can't get a sniff at a job. You got Sam Mitchell, you got Lionel Hollins, you got Avery Johnson, okay? The list just goes on and on. Randy Ayers gets fired after 52 games because Billy King, to his credit, admitted that he pushed the panic button. He's never got looked at again. Mike Woodson, despite the suffering that he had this year, the bad year that he had in New York, was off of a 54-win season the year before. Everywhere you look, you see black coaches with experience on the bench, okay, and can't get a sniff. But a person who has never coached on any level is chilling. Well, maybe I can go to New York. Or maybe I can go to San Francisco, Oakland, Bay Area. Or who knows, maybe I could go to Los Angeles. Really? That's my issue. So again, the Golden State Warriors is a better job. But what we also need to be looking at, again, is no knock on Steve Kerr. This has nothing to do with him. His name is just in the mix. In the end, the problem here is the fact that he has his pick of the litter, because clearly there's a discrepancy. And dare I say, and as I was listening to SiriusXM yesterday, and I think the guy's name is Dan Grasso, whatever, he did a fabulous job. He pointed out some of the same things that I pointed out in terms of Steve Kerr. Well, how do we know he can coach? That's all he was saying about that. But an exceptional radio host, and he did a good job with that. All I'm saying is there's some big-time discrepancy going on here, and it needs to be mentioned. And since nobody else mentioned it, I figured I might as well, since it is first take.
Okay.
Needed to give the first take on that.
Well, you don't need to be defensive about your position because you expressed it well yesterday and backed it up.
Yeah.
And I was with you on all your points. I still have no idea why Golden State would be interested in Steve Kerr. No idea. You can't sell it to me. There are no credentials. There's no reason. You can't validate that choice unless you just tell me he's such a nice guy that he would come across as the good cop to the bad cop they just pushed out the back door in their view that Mark Jackson had become. He'd become so difficult for management and ownership to deal with that Steve Kerr would be a delight. Do I believe? Yeah, I'm sure he would. You've been around him. He's just the nicest guy in the world.
Great,
in fact,
great guy.
I've made the point, I think he might be almost too nice to be a good head coach.
Yeah.
Now, I do get why Phil Jackson would be interested in Steve Kerr because, again, it's an extension of Phil because Phil, in his heart of hearts, I'm sure he would like to coach if his health would allow it, if he could travel, if his hips, blah, 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 blah. I still think at some point he might coach. But if he wanted to move down to the bench, Steve Kerr would be the good lieutenant who'd say, fine, I'll just move over one seat and you can sit at the head of the table, right? So Steve would be amenable to that, and obviously he grew up under Phil. He knows the triangle. He believes in the triangle. He could teach the triangle offense. So that all makes sense to me. I got to tell you, you say that Golden State would be a better job for Steve Kerr. I disagree. That could be a hornet's nest for him. He could walk into a locker room filled with players who loved and believed in Mark Jackson, and they might not immediately warm up to him or play hard for him. It might not click.
I don't see Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, which I'm a huge fan of, I don't see them laying down on the job.